Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to offer Dana, then please do go to justthiszen.org/giving. Your support really does make a huge difference. Thank you so much.
So welcome everybody, and tonight's talk is called Effort Without Desire. So the tradition we've had passed on to us by Flint is the Soto school of Zen. And as you know, that was founded by the 13th century monk Dogen. And Dogen's central question was, why sit when we already have Buddha nature? This question took him to China and back on a pilgrimage to learn more about Chan Buddhism, which was the forerunner to Zen. And after he returned from his pilgrimage to China, the first thing he wrote was the Fukan Zazen, or Instruction for Zazen. And the teachings he brought back were revolutionary because he saw that people were practicing with the desire to attain something distant from them. Even back then, there was the same idea of achievement and self-improvement that we have now. And Dogen's mission was to share this and remind people about this teaching of the Buddha, which had been forgotten somewhat, that realization is effort without desire. So again, why sit when we already have Buddha nature? And Dogen says in the Fukan Zazen, need I mention the Buddha who was possessed of inborn knowledge? The influence of his 6 years of upright sitting is noticeable still. In other words, even the Buddha, with all of his inborn knowledge, sat in Zazen for 6 years in order to realize what was already true. Dogen also says, give up practice based on intellectual understanding, pursuing words, or following after speech, and learn the backward step that turns your life inward to illumine the self. Body and mind and ourselves will drop away, and our original face will be manifest. So this backward step relates to the practice of just sitting and realizing what's already there, I think. But just sitting takes effort or commitment or intention, however you want to phrase it. And Norman Fisher says, the real journey is not to some place new, it simply brings us home to our inherent nature. So another way of saying the same thing. So I've been trying to unpick this phrase, effort without desire. And of course, I can offer you some reflections, but not any, great logical answers or explanations. It's these teachings are something that we just need to keep exposing ourselves to, and words can only do so much. And I've been, on a side note, I've been thinking about why Suzuki Roshi varies what the most important thing is when he's teaching. He's got various things that he says are the most important thing, and I think, and that refer to different aspects of practice, and I really get that. Because last time I told you that the good news is that returning over and over to your seat is the most important instruction. Finding a posture and remaining in your seat and doing that over and over. This week I'm going to say that the most important thing is to understand that this does not mean trying to achieve some special state, but to recognise that we're already there. And that the paradox is that we need to make an effort without wanting anything, effort without desire. How on earth can this be done? So I thought about the word effort and what, in this context, what does the word effort mean? So let me describe the type of effort that I'm familiar with, a kind that can be unhelpful. So right here at the corner, inner corner of my right eyebrow, I've got a deep groove. And I'm fond of this little groove because I see it as a physical representation of a part of me that tries really, really hard. I was the youngest of 4 children and my nearest sibling was 8 years older. So as a child, no matter how hard I tried, I could never keep up with them. When I'm really struggling to achieve something, a little frown appears, which has over the years created this groove. And I'm fond of this part of me because she has sincerity and self-doubt in equal measure. The kind of trying that this part of me does creates tension in my body and gets in my way, especially if I'm trying to do something that I believe I'm not very good at. Especially if there's a bit of me, not always conscious, that thinks that my value is attached to the outcome of the thing that I'm trying to do. I wonder if this resonates with any of you. I wonder how you get in your own way in your sincere efforts to achieve your desires. So, with all of our conditioning in a culture that prizes outward achievement, hard work, winning, goals, what happens when we begin to practice Zazen and the teachings tell us not to try and achieve anything or get anywhere and not to do anything? That if we practice this way, realization is available right now in every moment. One of the times that my little try-hard part gets in my way is playing tennis against my partner, who always beats me. If I unconsciously go along with the belief that my whole self-worth is at stake, every time I miss a point, I start to feel frustrated and angry and my body tenses. If I remind myself that I'm doing this for enjoyment and that the outcome is no reflection on my value, then I get a lot of pleasure from the experience. And if I don't take much notice of the score, I begin to notice the moment-to-moment experience of my body moving in response to what is happening right here. So, as some of you will know, my son Charlie is a very keen tennis player, and I was clearing out my bookshelf and I found a very old book called The Inner Game of Tennis that was published in 1974, and I gave it to him for his birthday, and he doesn't read, so he'll probably never read it. And I thought I'd just have a look to see if there was any useful quotes, because it is based on a version of mindfulness. And bearing in mind it was published in 1974, and I opened it, and the first thing that I saw when I opened it was a section called "Trying Hard, a Questionable Virtue." I thought, oh, that's very relevant. And he's talking about, and this shows how old it is, he's talking about a very attractive and cheery housewife that comes to him for lessons. But there's some gems in it. And one of the things he says is learning to see non-judgmentally, that is to see what is happening rather than merely noticing how well or badly it is happening. This overcomes trying too hard. So I thought that was quite interesting that was in that book, and I'd already thought of the tennis analogy. Anyway, yeah, going back to my description of when I can be in the moment playing tennis, that's not the end of the story because it's not a fairy tale, and all my old habits of mind don't disappear the next time I get on the tennis court. The same thoughts and feelings will often show up, and when I can notice them and let them pass through, I'm free to be back in the flow of what's happening again. So our practice in Zazen is not to suppress what arises, but to let it come and let it go. We'll inevitably get in our own way with our habitual ways of thinking and trying and craving. But can we notice them and begin to see through them? Can we hold them more lightly and not get captured by them? I discovered that I liked my groove in my forehead when I could view with kindness and compassion that little girl that tried so hard but got in my way. So back to this word effort, in effort without desire. I was wondering about the word effort as we see it in sort of modern parlance, because for me that word effort can bring up all of that trying hard that I was describing before, where you can get in your own way. I understand the effort without desire, the whole phrase changes it, but I'd still quite like the idea of playing around with the words and trying different words to replace effort, maybe commitment or intention. So effort without desire could be commitment without attachment to outcome, or intention without grasping, maybe. And you might find your own words to remind yourself. However, here's a lovely quote about effort from Norman Fisher, which reconciles me a little bit to the word. And he says, the purpose of spiritual practice is not to get somewhere. The process is to come home, to return to ourselves. This return takes effort, necessary, joyful, continuous effort. So now for the second part, desire. What's the desire that Dogen is talking about? A desire for a pleasant experience, a desire to manipulate our state of mind, a desire to be different to how we are, a desire to become someone who's free of pain and struggle and the challenges and complications of being human. So I'm not immune to those desires listed. Who doesn't crave freedom from pain? But what I have gradually come to understand is the prevalence of self-improvement strategies and programs in our culture, and how much we're encouraged to follow some sort of self-improvement plan. And I've begun to understand, largely through sustained practice, that it's one of the most common and insidious causes of suffering in our society, I think, because it relies on us feeling dissatisfaction. And we live in a capitalist culture where we're constantly being sold something and told that we're not good enough as we are, and we don't have enough. And yet, trying to explain to my personal trainer at the gym that I don't want to be goal orientated makes me sound a bit bonkers. Why go to the gym and work out if not to gain something? Why would we sit for no reason and no gain? It's probably true, if I'm honest, that what got me to the gym in the first place was dissatisfaction about my body image, wanting to look or feel different. Just like what got me to the practice seat was the feeling that something was missing, maybe. Something has to make us take action. But if my motive is dissatisfaction and some distant goal, I don't feel that motivated. If my reason is to take care of my well-being right here, right now, and notice what's happening, and notice my body, and feel gratitude for all that it does for me, with all the limitations that an aging human body has, then I can rest into the moment. A teacher of mine, and also a teacher of some of yours, Donna Martin, once stated that whilst ever we wish that we were different to how we are, we're perpetuating a kind of violence towards ourselves. I remember that in response to this statement, a fellow student shared that she had noticed a long hair on her chest that very morning, and her response had been to violently pull it from her body. On reflection, she was surprised by the harsh attitude she had shown towards herself, reactively, without even thinking about it. The more we can come back to an acceptance of who we are, where we are, whilst we sit and watch the weather of our minds, the greater our ability to be here rather than in a fantasy world, in some distant future, where we'll become the perfect Zen student and have the perfect meditation experience. Feeding our inner critic, feeding our dissatisfaction and our sense of ourselves as isolated individuals that need to be the best, only leads to greater suffering. Our desire to shape ourselves into something we think will be more acceptable can never be fulfilled. Hence, effort without desire. When we go on retreat, we're making a choice to spend our precious time sitting in silence. Why would we do this and keep doing it? It's hard and it's painful. And then to add insult to injury, we're told not to expect anything from it. We have ideas about what we're going to get from it and how it's going to make our lives better. The first retreat I went on made me high. As someone that's always chased a high, I kept trying to grasp to achieve that state again. But as I continued to practice and go on retreats, I began to notice that that grasping mind only makes me suffer. And that's the reason we keep going, because it helps us see more clearly that life will keep being what it is, no matter how hard we try to manipulate our experience. As Flint often says, you can try and fight reality, but reality will always win. He also says, and I'm paraphrasing here, practice doesn't make life better, but it makes it manageable. Zazen can be hard, uncomfortable, painful, frustrating, but it's a very effective training over time at becoming more accepting of life as it is. Here's a nice quote from Barry Majid. I try to tell people to sit down, face the wall, and sit as if you're looking into a mirror. Your face automatically appears right there. The mirror is doing all the work. You don't have to do anything except look. You can't do that well or badly. All we're doing there is seeing ourselves manifesting moment after moment after moment, whatever is in the mirror. All we have to do is to be willing to stay still and keep looking. Our practice from that point of view is about trying to take ourselves whole initially. The only thing we're doing is looking in that mirror and not flinching and not using it as a makeup mirror, not trying to touch up our image or trying to make ourselves look better than we are. Just saying, that's me, that's me, that's me, moment after moment. We're saying that to our body, mind, and all its manifestations. When our body is uncomfortable or restless or itchy, or our minds are wandering, or we get tense, or emotional thoughts come through our head, whatever that is, there's no doing it right or wrong. And as I was reading that, I was thinking about when we see our image on Zoom. And as soon as I see myself on Zoom, I start doing this, touching it up, rather than just looking and going, that's me. Finally, I want to emphasise that while I've been focusing on our individual experiences, Zazen's the practice of connection. Whether we're sitting alone or with people on Zoom or with people in a Zendo, there's always other people sitting with us, including all the ancestors that have gone before. I'll say more about this in another talk, but one of the reasons why practice is not a self-improvement program is because our illusion of separation, of having to win and be better than others, brings suffering to us and to the world. Sitting Zazen uncovers our connection to everyone and everything. When we sit and practice over and over with other people, our perception of the separation between us lessens, and we see more and more how all of the things we try to resist or reject in ourselves are just part of being human. It comes as part of the deal of being alive. We continue to be accepted by others in the Sangha, and that helps us to see that maybe we don't have to take ourselves quite so seriously. Many of the thoughts I have make me laugh when I really see through them. And I'm looking at you here, Catherine, because I know we've often talked about how ridiculous and hilarious we find some of our delusions. Many times I found myself thinking, who do you think you are? Why would you be so special that you wouldn't make mistakes? You're part of the human race with all of our ancient tangled karma. Our Sangha life can help us have the courage to see what we really are, and that our life with all its challenges and complications is a gift. So, I'm going to invite us to have a little bit of time with somebody else in a breakout room just 10 minutes again, I think. Um, and I thought about sort of having a prescriptive question, but I kind of think it's nicer just to let you share what resonated or what came up for you during the talk. So I'm going to ask Maria to put you into breakout rooms now. Thanks, Maria.